Okay, good afternoon. I will call the January 18th, 2024 TRPA Hearings Officer meeting to order. It is 2 p.m. My name is Marcia Birch, and I will be serving as the hearings officer today. All right, the first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Do we have any changes?
Yes, I'd like to suggest that the first item, the Outpoint rehabilitation, be moved last to the agenda so that we can have the attendance of one additional member of TRPA staff.
Okay, so I think what I'll do is move that second to last.
Okay.
In order to accommodate, there's a possibility that one of the representatives from the applicants will only be with us until 2:40.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Yeah, the engineering case questions.
Okay, so
Sure.
I think that timing will work out pretty well. So I'm gonna go ahead and move item 5A to just after item 5E and before item 5F. Okay. And I'll approve the agenda as we have revised it. And now I'll open it up for public interest comments for no action. Any member of the public who wishes to address the hearings officer on any item that is not listed as a public hearing item on the agenda may do so at this time. Public comments on any public hearing item will be taken at the time those agenda items are heard. The hearings officer is prohibited by law from taking immediate action or discussing issues raised by the public that are not listed on the agenda. So I will ask if there's anyone in the room who has a public comment that is not listed as an agenda item. Seeing none, Jessica, if you could check online.
If any member of the public wishes to address the hearings officer, you can do so now by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised.
All right, thank you. I will close that item. Announcement of appeal rights. Any decision of the hearings officer is appealable to the TRPA governing board. The notice of appeal, which can be found on TRPA's website, and associated fees must be filed within 21 days of the hearings officer's decision. All right, so we'll go ahead with our public hearing items. And we'll start with item 5B, Cameron Land Capability Challenge, 4015 GStat Road, Tahoe City, Placer County, California. Assessor's parcel number 083-050-032. TRPA file number LCAP 2023-0238. And there's a note in the agenda that this item was continued from the December 14th, 2023 hearings officer meeting. All right, Julie Roll, this is your item.
Yes, thank you. This is Julie Roll with the TRPA. And as Marcia said, this is a land capability challenge. And it was reviewed on behalf of TRPA by soils consultant Marshall Munnicky. And the property actually had a previous land capability challenge back in 2017, which already changed the land capability of classes 4, 1, 6, and 1B, and the 1B being stream environment zone. So this challenge was basically a follow-up on that to specifically reevaluate a portion of the stream environment zone. So that's what we did as part of this challenge. And the staff recommendation is just to reclassify this one specific area of class 1B as class 3 and class 5. Marcel is on the line, I believe, so she can give a little bit more detail about what she found on the site. But I will just say that I have not received any public comment on this item ahead of the meeting.
Okay, and before we hear from Marshall, I was just curious what triggered the reevaluation.
Well, it was at the request of the owner, and Marshall will get into it, but basically they felt that one of the areas that was previously determined to be SEZ, they hadn't done a soil pit in that area, so they didn't think that was accurate. So that's what we did in this case.
Thank you.
Mhm.
All right, is Marshall with us?
She is.
Hi, this is Marshall here. Sorry, I'm kind of in a loud spot outside. But yeah, this was reassessed because there was 2 areas of SEZ. One area had a pit dug in it for the original challenge and determined it was SEZ. The other area was mapped as SEZ because it had Schooler's Willow So it's based on vegetation, but Schooler's willow is facultative upland wetland species, meaning it can occur equally in upland and in wetland, even though it's a willow species. It's a sort of a drier willow species. So really, when we see that species, we should be looking at soil characteristics as well to verify if it's actually in wetland or SCZ in this case. So we did do another pit in this area, and the soil was different than the rest of the area that was previously excavated. It was a little bit wetter. It had a water table evident at 35 inches, but that's too deep to be SEZ. But it puts it in hydrosoil group C, which makes it class 3 and 5 instead of 4 and 6 as the rest of the parcel was mapped. So it's kind of a transitional zone for between SEZ and upland. I think that about covers it. If you have any other questions, let me know.
No, thank you. That was very good. So I will open this item up to public comment. Is there anyone present who has a comment on item 5B?
Hi, this is Gary Furumoto, and I'm not necessarily part of the public, but I'm a representative of the Cameron Family Trust, who is the owner of the property. And we have reviewed the staff summary and consulted with Marshall, and we agree with the findings of the staff report and would like to move forward with the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. All right, Jessica, if you could check if there's anyone online who would like to comment on this item.
If anyone online would like to address the hearings officer and comment on this item, you can raise your hand now by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised. There are no hands raised to comment on this item.
All right, thank you. Then I will close the public hearing and take action. I will approve the proposed land capability challenge as it has been presented. And now we will move on to item 5C. 5C is a Taylor Land Capability Challenge, 545 Alpine View Drive, Incline Village, Washoe County, Nevada. Assessor's parcel number 131-212-03, TRPA file number LCAP 2023-0309. And this is also Julie.
Yes, this is Julie Roll again. As Marcia said, this is another land capability challenge. This was also reviewed by our soils consultant, Marshall Munike. In this case, the staff recommendation is to change the land capability from class 3 to class 4. And we have not received any public comments on this item. And again, Marshall's on the line and she can give us a few more details on what she found.
Hello, Marshall here again. Yeah, this parcel is in the area that was east of Incline Village and kind of a strip that was mapped as Oompa in the original soil survey. Oompa is a shallow soil over hard bedrock, 20 to 40 inches. And this soil was very deep. We did not hit bedrock. And typically these soils are similar to the Jorge soil, which is mapped in that area in 2007. But in this case, it was a deep soil, but it did not have argillic horizon development as in the Jorge soil, and it was kind of in the transition zone between an upland colluvial soil and the lower elevation alluvial soils influenced by like outwash and lake deposits. So it was kind of an oddball soil. It didn't fit any category. And so it changed from class 3 to an XXX class 4 soil. And that's all I have for that.
All right, thank you, Marshall. I should check to see if there's anyone else from the applicant on the line.
There is one person, David Herzog. Go ahead and unmute.
So I'm actually the owner. I think I came in as David Herzog, but I'm Alex Taylor. I think David might be on the line, but I'm talking because he somehow might not be unmuted, but happy to answer any questions. Would prefer to let David answer them.
Okay, well, I didn't have any questions at the moment.
I've asked David to unmute.
Yeah, hi, sorry about that. There's two names of mine on the same screen. It's weird. Anyway, because I forwarded him my invite, so he just got so now there's two of me on this call. So anyway, no, yes, if you have any questions about that, but we agree with Marcel's conclusions on that as well.
Thank you. So I'll go ahead and open this item up for public comment. So if anyone has any comments on item 5C, you can come up to the podium now. No one present, so Jessica, if you could check online.
All right, any member of the public wishes to address the hearings officer on this item, you can do so now by raising your hand and using the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised to comment on this item. Oh, David Herzog. Did you want to comment again?
Sorry, that's me or David from previously.
Got it, thanks. So there are no other hands raised. to comment.
All right, then I will close the public hearing and take action. I will approve the proposed land capability challenge as it has been presented. And now we will move on to item 5D. This is the More Land Capability Challenge, 362 and 370 Beaver Street, Kings Beach, Placer County, California. APN 090212010, TRPA file number LCAP 2023-0268, and APN number 090212024, TRPA file number LCAP 2023-0269. All right, and whose project is this? This is also Julie.
Yeah. This is Julie Roll again. So this is a land capability challenge for two adjacent parcels. So it was actually submitted as two separate applications, but just combined into one staff report, just due to its proximity and common ownership. So the staff recommendation is to change the land capability from classes 1A and 5 to classes 2 and 4. This application was reviewed on behalf of TRPA by soils consultant Phil Scholes, and he is on the line and he can give us a few more details about what he found. He may need help being unmuted.
I actually don't see Phil on here. Phil is not on the line. We don't have Phil.
Texting him, but
We can wait for a moment, see if you get a response.
he called in.
Paul? Is he 530, 503?
503 number?
503?
Yes.
Okay, that's him. You just asked him to unmute.
Okay, Phil, I think we've got you, but you have to unmute. Or can you unmute him?
Don't seem to be able to. He seems to be having a little issue with the phone.
He was in the middle of teaching and had to take a quick break to join us, so hopefully.
Unmuting him does not seem to be working. I think he's calling back.
It says it won't let him unmute.
Yeah, that's what's happening on my end too.
I wonder if I can have him call my phone and just play it loudly. I
Is he not on his computer? He should have the link too.
don't know.
Yeah, he dropped off. But I saw.
I think, like I said, he's in the middle of teaching, so he may not have had his computer.
So Julie, to the extent that I had any question.
Yeah.
Like I said, that, it sounds like there are occasions, because it's not required, where there isn't a land capability verification in place when we get the challenge. And in this particular case, there was a big shift from 1A to a couple of other classes. And maybe you could just explain briefly, it doesn't have to be a long detailed explanation, how the land capability verification is a fairly coarse evaluation. And
Yeah.
so it is not surprising that this change came about.
Yeah, so when we do a land capability verification, we're strictly looking at the mapped, like Bailey layer of our soil type and Bailey map. So we're looking at that and then just looking at the slope of the property. So what a land capability challenge allows us to do is actually go on the side, dig a test pit, actually look at the characteristics of the soil. And we can either find that it's actually was mapped correctly, or it belongs in a different map soil type, or it doesn't fit into any of the map soil types, in which case, then we call it an XXX soil. So in this case, looking really quick at the staff report. This one ended up going into a different map soil type. So instead of the like 1A and 2, which was the Oompa soil type, this one ended up going into the George Tahoma map unit. So it was just a different soil from the 1974 soil survey.
Yes, and I can see from the staff report, which I understand Phil Scholes assisted in preparing, that there were soil pits and a very thorough evaluation of the soils there. So I'm gonna go ahead and open it up for public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to comment on item 5D, you can do so now. All right, let's see if there's anyone online who has a comment on the Moore Land Capability Challenge.
If any member of the public wishes to make a comment right now, make a public comment right now, you can, sorry, joking. You can raise your hand by using the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Abby Edwards.
Hi, my name's Abigail Edwards, and I'm from Tahoe Land Planning. I represent the property owners, and we agree with the findings that Phil made and have no questions and support recommendation of approval on this project.
All right, thank you.
There are no other hands raised. Comment on this item.
All right, then I will close the public hearing and take action and approve the proposed land capability challenge as it was presented. Both challenges in this case that were presented in this staff summary. Okay. Our next item is item 5E. It's the Globetrotter Properties LLC Land Capability Challenge, 176 Highway 50, Douglas County, Nevada. APN 1318-22-001-013, TRPA file number LCAP 2023-0144. This is also Julie.
Okay, so the staff recommendation for this land capability challenge is to change the land capability from classes 2 and 5 to classes 2, 4, and 6. And this was another Phil one, so hopefully he'll be able to get online, but I think this one was a little more complicated. I did want to point out a couple changes to the staff report, so I'm wondering if Jessica, you're able to pull up this one, page 3 on the screen. I can just show you really quick. Just some edits to the table. It's on page 3, it's item E. Sorry, I should have warned you. I was gonna
No
ask you to
worries.
do that.
This might take me a minute.
Well, I can explain it
Okay.
the best I can, but so there's a table on page 3, and in the second to last column, it's a 2024 land capability challenge area. So we had a few that needed to change on there. The class 2 XXX, is changed to the area being 13,767 square feet. The class 4 CAD area is changing to 30,375 square feet. And the class 6 XXX area is changing to 285,755 square feet. And then I also adjusted the net change total area in the far right column just to match that. So we were just had some math issues there that we were correcting, so.
Okay. So it wasn't a change in the, sort of analysis?
No.
It was
Yeah.
just a math.
Okay, that's in this column, these items, and then in here, so.
Right.
I've made the change, I've uploaded the revised staff report, and it's been, given to the applicant ahead of time, so I think we're all squared away.
Okay, and have you received any public comment?
No public comments.
All right,
And then
so,
let's see if Phil's able to get on now.
Oh, there he is. Just asking to unmute. Looks like he's out on his computer.
Okay, I'm here.
hi, Phil.
Hi, sorry about the technical difficulties. I'm standing out in the field, taking a break from a class that I'm teaching. So this land capability challenge was a little bit more difficult than some other ones. The challenge involved the applicant, soil consultant going out and having 5 pits dug. I observed them digging those pits, and also I agreed with their conclusions that most of the time those were either all the time they were either class 4 or class 6, meaning that they were deep soils. They didn't have restrictions. The soil mapping is such that you would, if we were encountering what was mapped there, we would have hit bedrock or highly weathered bedrock at a shallow depth, and that was not the case in any of those pits. So we agreed with the conclusions of those pits. We felt that there were areas on site that have a large cluster of rock outcrops that the soil consultant did not tease out. And the site as a whole has many, maybe even 1,000 rocks extruding from the surface. But as has often been the case, especially when we're sort of closer to the lake, a lot of times those are big rocks that have deep soils around them because they used to be rocks and boulders that were part of the shoreline. And when the shoreline receded, they became filled in with with dirt. But when you see a large cluster of them very close together, we sometimes see that the stuff that might be growing in the soil between them is either highly stunted or it's bare ground, and that's indicative of a shallower soil. So we mapped out some areas that were bedrock or had shallow depth to bedrock. Some of those met the Cagwin series, and the Cagwin series, when it is on a slope of 5 to 15%, is a class 4, and when that Cagwin soil is on a slope that's 15 to 30%, it's a class 2. And then there were some other areas that didn't meet the Cagwin category. They were an unnamed soil, and those sometimes had a slope greater than 30%, and those became class 2. So one of the things that happened in this challenge was a back and forth discussion with the soil consultant on how small of a polygon do we map out for land capability challenges, because some of these, as you can see on the map, are a couple thousand square feet. I think the smallest one's about 4,000 square feet. And there was disagreement that maybe we were teasing out too small of a polygon. And I went back to a number of land capability challenges that we've done over the last 10 years or more. And we have consistently, on behalf of TRPA, identified areas of high capability land that was often a small pocket of only a couple thousand square feet. And this is one of those situations where we're mapping out some small pockets that are low capability. So I believe in our mapping approach, it has been consistent with decisions that have been made over the last 10 years. Overall, though, the results of this challenge are such that we're seeing a substantial increase of class 6 on the site and an increase in the class 4 and a substantial reduction on class 2.
Thank you for that explanation, Bill. I was curious about a number of things and you covered all of them, so thank you.
Yeah. We also did some hand augured locations, about 5 of those, and put together some soil descriptions for those, and they're part of the appendix.
Thank you. Okay, so is there anyone, another representative from the applicant who would like to speak?
Melissa Beckenbach would like to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is actually Jackson Riallo. I'm using Melissa Bickenbach's link here. Apologies for the confusion. I work with Xline and Company and am representing the property owners on this parcel. Just wanted to say that we have reviewed the staff report and the findings and agree with the revised staff report numbers that were presented by Julie Roll, and no further comments or questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to open it up for public comment. If anyone would like to make a comment on item 5E, the Globetrotter Properties Land Capability Challenge, now is the time. Seeing no one in the room, Jessica, would you please check online?
If anyone would like to make a comment on this item, you can do so now by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised to comment on this item.
All right, thank you. I will close the public hearing and approve the proposed land capability challenge as it was presented and as it was corrected by Julie during the meeting. Thank you. All right, so we will now take item 5A. That is the Elk Point Rehabilitation Project, modification and repair of shore zone structures, 460 Bittlers Road, Zephyr Cove, Douglas County, Nevada. Assessor's parcel number 1318-16801-001. TRPA file number ERSP 2023-0365. And this item was continued from the December 14th, 2023 hearings officer meeting. And Zach Davis is our planner on this.
Good afternoon. I'm Zach Davis, Assistant Environmental Specialist with TRPA. I reviewed this project and provided the hearing officer materials. The applicant proposes a rehabilitation of the Elk Point Harbor and associated shores and structures. Existing conditions at the project area include an inland harbor and a community beach serving homeowners association members. It's staff's recommendation that the hearings officer make the required findings and approve the project subject to the special conditions of the draft permit and any changes made to it during this hearing. Jessica, if we could go to site plan sheet SP1, I'll go through those elements of the project. And before I do so, I'll just mention that the project is located in the RABE plan area where marinas, boat launching facilities, fences, and shoreline protective structures are special uses. The reason being for this hearings officer review, boat ramps, moorings, and floating docks are allowed accessory structures within that plan area. So just going through some of the basics of this plan, we have maintenance dredging that's going to occur within the harbor here and also the channel. That has been previously approved by TRPA as maintenance dredging. The footprint of that dredging is within the same footprint that has been previously approved by TRPA. The depth to 6220 has also been previously approved.
Excuse me. Can I interrupt? It's excuse me, it's John Marshall. I'm only seeing on Zoom the prior screen from the prior item.
I'll get the correct one up. Hang on one second. Thanks for the heads up. Appreciate it.
Sorry, Zach.
No problem.
Are you seeing the correct?
I think I'm seeing the correct thing. It's a proposed dredging plan.
Yeah.
Zach, when you, so for people online, we can't correlate what you are if you're making hand gestures.
So I will try to draw with my cursor where he's.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And actually, can we go to site plan sheet SP1? That's gonna be an overview of the, project area.
Missed it. This one?
Yeah, that one. And then can we zoom in on that
Yes.
inset there? Thank you, Jessica.
Absolutely. Oops. Sorry, this is a little wonky. We zoomed in right there on the harbor.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Mhm. Okay, so in addition to maintenance dredging, the project also includes, the replacement of the floating docks and boat slips. There's gonna be a reconfiguration there. There are currently 40 boat slips in the inland harbor. This project would result in no additional moorage capacity. We're also gonna be seeing this, sheet pile wall. Jessica, that's the black bolded line that outlines our boat slips here. We're gonna be seeing the, replacement and modification of that sheet pile wall. Part of that modification is gonna include, a semi-dynamic revetment, just down here, Jessica, on the southwest corner. And we're looking at that as a sheet pile wall modification because we already have this sheet pile wall in place here. Essentially that, semi-dynamic revetment is going to provide additional protection for that sheet pile wall. It's gonna extend the life of it, reduce the incursion of sands within the inner harbor, also reducing the need for maintenance dredging. And one of the reasons we're looking at it in that way is because we already have visual impact from that portion of sheet pile wall. That's a visible structure from the beach. And really, we're just putting a more natural looking, material boulders in front of that in order to, I'll say, slightly, increase the baseline, conditions of that wall. Additionally, we have, previous littoral studies that were provided by the applicant that show that any modifications, to this area, this modification to the area isn't gonna produce any significant littoral effects. In fact, it's gonna be a negligible effect on littoral drift to any neighboring properties. Moving on to the next element of the project, the boat ramp here, just over here, Jessica. That's gonna be, that's currently composed of deteriorating concrete and is gonna be replaced. That's gonna include a modification as well, Jessica, just on the top right corner of the boat ramp. We're gonna see 120 square feet of new coverage and land capability 1B. That will be relocated or transferred in at a rate of 1.5 to 1 in order to mitigate. And then we do have some sections of fencing above the high water line outside of the back shore. We also have a section of fencing below the high water line that is going to be removed per TRPA code. The sections above high water are going to be replaced with from chain link fence to new hog wire fencing. It's a little more visually appealing. And then we do have a new section of hog wire fence that's going to be going in down here to the south of the boat ramp, just above this rock retention basin. Also, Jessica, if we zoom out, we will see just to the north of the inland harbor, the final element of the project is going to be just a little further north, please. Yes, that's good. Is going to be this existing wood deck is going to be replaced. You can see here the existing staircase to the southwest side is going to be relocated to the north side. That's going to result in that's 17 square feet of coverage in land capability 1B. That relocation of coverage is going to require restoration at a rate of 1.5 to 1. So we're going to round that up to 9 square feet. That is going to be retired from the allowable coverage in 1B. So if we don't have any questions on the project elements, I'll move on to the issues and concerns that I included in the staff summary and kind of go over those.
Yes, we can move on to those.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're really concerned with this project is preventing the spread of aquatic invasive species. The Elk Point Inland Harbor does have known plant species within the harbor. And also here within the last, I guess, 6 months or so, we've had the discovery of New Zealand mud snails within Lake Tahoe. That being the case, we've taken extensive measures to put conditions into this permit to make sure that first and foremost, the maintenance dredging isn't creating any potential for spreading these aquatic invasive species. But really any part of the project that is disturbing the lake bottom, the substrate there. Those include a number of permit conditions. I think it would be extraneous to go through them all, but I do want to bring a couple up. We'd like to see coordination with TRPA to curate an already drafted AIS control plan. We'd like to curate that and have TRPA approve that prior to permit acknowledgement. We are asking the applicant propose a methodology for surveying and photographing the project area for the presence of AIS. If New Zealand mud snails were detected at any point, we are conditioning that the dredging spoils would have to be kept in sealed containers until their disposal. We are asking for a repair of an AIS prevention bubble curtain located at the harbor mouth. Actually, Jessica, if we want to scroll down south a little bit, I can just kind of start point out some of these things as I'm going through them. So yeah, there's a bubble curtain that is currently non-operational at the harbor's mouth. And actually, I don't know exactly where that is. That's part of what I've requested in those permit conditions is to update the site plan with the location of that bubble curtain. Also, we're looking for, prior to acknowledgement, we're looking to see that the bubble curtain's repair is scoped out, and a plan of work is provided so that it can be repaired during the 2024 boating season. We're also looking to see that an alert system would be retrofitted onto that bubble curtain to notify the managers of the marina if there were any disruptions to operational ability to that bubble curtain. Other AIS prevention measures we've taken in the permit are that dredging spoils would need to be secured in the dewatering area so that return flows could not make it back to the lake. Essentially, we want to make sure that any sediment, any potential AIS that are in that dredging spoil material can't find its way running down essentially the beach back into the lake. We also would like to approve the disposal site for dredging material prior to dredging. We have, and I'll get into this a little bit more, but we basically want to make sure that that dredging location isn't somewhere where AIS could potentially make it into a waterway. I'm going to address that a little bit more when I get to partner agency comments on this. The second issue and concern element that I'd like to address are the 5 environmental improvements that are required of any minor marina project. That is how we reviewed this, given the structures that are in close proximity here. We found that TRPA's code for marinas was the best way to look at this project. Other code sections probably wouldn't fully address all of the structures present and provide adequate development standards for us to be able to look at all the potential environmental impacts. So with a minor marina project, there are 5 environmental improvements that are required of the marina. 3 of those have not yet been finalized, and I would say through no fault of the applicant or the marina. But we do want to condition into the permit that those things be continue to be pursued and finalized. First, the Clean Marina certification. The applicant has produced and supplied us with a Clean Marina manual. They have Clean Marina staff scheduled to come out to the site. I know that weather delays and Clean Marina staff availability has created a couple delays on visits that they've had. So they haven't been able to get that certification yet, but we do believe they're on track. We'd like to make that a condition of the permit that does get finalized though. The Nevada Division of State Lands lease, we do have a condition in the permit that all agencies within the Lake Tahoe Basin with jurisdiction, they would need to get all applicable approvals from them. So we are looking at that as being a part of that condition there. And also, generally speaking, when we're looking at projects that both TRPA and state lands review, typically state lands is going to do their review after TRPA has issued an approval or a permit. Finally, is that AIS control plan, which I've spoken to a little bit. We do want to require that the AIS control plan is submitted and approved by TRPA prior to acknowledgement of the permit. It's going to take a little bit of coordination with TRPA and the applicant and the Tahoe Resource Conservation District. But we do think that that is something that we're going to have to address going into the acknowledgement of the permit. Now there is potential that we could, if it's acceptable to the hearings officer, that we could put that to another portion. We could require that prior to the pre-grade and the first pre-grade inspection that we're doing. We're also requiring a second pre-grade inspection. I'll take this chance to mention that we did receive public comment from the League to Save Lake Tahoe. They have requested that an AIS control plan be approved by TRPA prior to dredging. So we could work that into prior to that second pre-grade inspection, which is the pre-grade inspection preceding dredging. Public notice for this hearing was mailed to all property owners within 300 feet of the project area boundaries on November 29th of 2023. Other than the only comment we have received at this point was from the League to Save Lake Tahoe that I just mentioned. We discussed and presented this project at the TRPA hosted Shoreline Review Committee. That is a monthly meeting in which partner agencies here in the Tahoe Basin meet to discuss projects and potential permitting timelines and conditions that allow us to work together with partner agencies and make sure that we are all issuing permits that confer with our partner agencies. This did result in coordination with Nevada Department of Environmental Protection to address some concerns over the dewatering of dredged materials. That is what I mentioned earlier. We want to secure those return flows so that they can't make it back. Nevada Department of Environmental Protection was concerned with potential sediment and AIS making it back to the lake from that dewatering area. One of the second comments that we received from partner agencies was from California Division of Fish and Wildlife. They requested that if the dredging spoil material disposal site were to be in California, that it not be in proximity to any California waterways, preventing the potential spread of AIS into those waterways. So like I mentioned before, we do want to take a look at that site and approve it. We are also requiring in the draft permit that any jurisdiction that requiring approval for the disposal of those materials be notified and those approvals be gained. And then I do have a couple updates and corrections for the draft permit, but maybe I'll just take this point to ask if there's any questions from the hearings officer.
I do have a question just to sort of wrap up that presentation of the agency comments that you received.
Yes.
Those were addressed through permit conditions.
Yes, they were.
Okay.
They were.
Okay.
Yes, so for, we do have a permit condition, basically saying that the dredging dewatering site would need to be secured in a manner that no return flows could make it back to Lake Tahoe. And then for the California Division of Fish and Wildlife comment, we have a draft permit condition that says prior to dredging or that second pre-grade inspection that we do need to approve that location for spoil material disposal.
Okay, and that's the spoiled material after it's been dewatered.
Correct. Yeah. So what's going to happen is either a barge or a loader on top of a barge or an amphibious vehicle. They're going to physically remove that soil material from underneath the water. It's gonna be transported into the upland into a site. And actually, Jessica, if we could go to, we'll take a closer look at that dewatering site. That's gonna be that dredging site plan that we initially started on. I think that's page 3 of your document there. Yeah, so, and actually those hatched areas over there, we can see, let's scroll to the right a little bit and back up to where we just were. And then up, please. And we'll see those 2 squares there. Yeah, perfect. So the square to the right here that you're seeing, that's our dewatering area. Basically, we want to make sure that that's secured so that none of those return flows can make it back to the lake. What we're gonna see here is a proposed area for using that spoil material as beach replenishment. TRPA staff is recommending that we not use the spoil material for beach replenishment because of the risk of AIS spread. We've talked, I've mentioned more than once that we don't want any of those return flows making it to the lake. This would kind of defeat the point of that.
So that beach replenishment is not part of the permit.
No, that would not be a part of the permit.
Okay.
We would not be approving it.
And this dewatering site is going to be approved by TRPA?
That's right.
Okay.
Mhm.
All right. Okay, those were well, I actually have another question, and it might be better to address this in a bit, because I think this is gonna be a topic of discussion today. But in item number 2 of the issues and concerns, you noted that the applicant would be required to consult a TRPA AIS specialist and identify methodologies for surveys prior, during, and after the dredging. And this is, to identify AIS and presumably manage it. And then there's this, and then there's the requirement for the preparation of an aquatic invasive species control plan.
Mhm.
Are those the same processes?
They're very closely related, but no, they're not the same plan. So the control plan, and we do have a couple TRPA staff employees that work closely with AIS who could probably speak to this a little better than I could. But the control plan is essentially a requirement of the shoreline plan that addresses the big picture, let's call it, of AIS at a marina or a harbor. It's gonna address, what's on site, how can it be controlled, how can it potentially be eliminated? Whereas the methodology for surveying and photography could play into that control plan. But really what we're talking about is sending down divers, taking samples of the substrate. Like I said, we don't actually have that methodology. We would like that methodology provided to us. But that's physically trying to detect aquatic invasive species at the harbor, as opposed to a plan for managing them.
Okay, which raises my next question, which is in the public comment from the We to Save Lake Tahoe, they were referencing an AIS management plan. And is there a difference between a control plan and a management plan?
As far as I know, that's 2 terms for the same thing. We see the 2018 shoreline plan use management plan. We see it come up in the code as control plan.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was seeing that, and I wanted to make sure that I was not erroneously treating them as the same.
No, yeah, that's led to some confusion on my part as well early on in the process of review.
Okay, so those are my questions at the moment, so you can proceed, thank you.
Sure. So yeah, I do have a couple updates and corrections to the permits. There are a couple administrative errors on my part that I'd like to address. First of all, in the project description, I would like to remove the phrase breakwater extension to reflect that we reviewed this as a sheet pile wall modification. I'd like to add a condition of acknowledgement that the applicant coordinate with TRPA to curate and approve the AIS management plan. That was supposed to be there on the first draft and didn't make it in, my mistake. Similarly, ditto for the condition for conditioning clean marina certification. I'd also like to move condition 3A, which regards AIS inspection of dredging equipment. I'd like to move that to condition 2, So that would be required prior to dredging instead of prior to acknowledgement. Also, I'd like to clean up that language a little bit after discussing with the applicant that, you know, there's a good chance that this work will be performed from a barge. These barges don't typically come out of the water, and when they do, or if they do, it's at great expense. So we want to work together with the applicant to make sure that we're coming up with a way to properly inspect a barge if that is going to be the contractor that's chosen. You know, that's probably going to involve some sort of in-water inspection and decontamination process. Currently, the permit language reads that it needs to go to an a Tahoe AIS inspection station. But that doesn't seem to be feasible depending on which contractor is selected for this project. So I would want to clean up that language a little bit just to basically say that we are still requiring inspection and potential decontamination, but it doesn't have to necessarily occur at an inspection station.
It would be a method approved by TRPA.
Correct. Also, I would like to move condition 2C, adding that to condition 3B5. This would require that alert system for the operational ability of the bubble curtain be installed while it is being repaired during the 2024 boating season. And then finally, there is a typo. The page numbers on the draft permit are incorrect. If you'll see on the last page of the permit, it's labeled 10 out of 9. There are 10 pages. It's labeled 10 out of 9. I'd like to correct that. And that's it for my presentation.
Okay, so why don't, Zach, if you would just summarize the comment that we received from the League to Save Lake Tahoe.
Absolutely. So the League to Save Lake Tahoe, they started out by saying that they agree with many of the AIS prevention conditions that we have included in the permit. They added that they would also like to see TRPA approve an AIS control plan prior to dredging occurring, which we've discussed would be a part of the draft permit, or would be a part of those corrections in the draft permit. It should have been in there in the first place. And then they also said that if the AIS control plan couldn't be approved, that they'd like to see the project adhering to the regulations that Lahontan Regional Water Control Board has for dredging. Again, if that AIS control plan couldn't be approved. The reason that we're not looking to Lahontan's regulations for this project is because they have jurisdiction in California, not in Nevada, where the project is taking place. I'm no expert at Lahontan's regulations, but you know, actually just I heard quite a bit of talk of what they're requiring for some projects at that shoreline review committee this morning that I mentioned. And I didn't hear anything that was really outside of the bounds of what we're already requiring. But again, the league had stated that if we couldn't approve that control plan, that they'd like to see those requirements, the Lahontan requirements met. Yeah, so I think since we're meeting, or we're going to be requiring approval of the control plan, I don't think we need to go into, you know, the California jurisdiction to seek those Lahontan requirements.
So it's basically the first alternative that they requested, which was that control plan be approved prior to dredging, is going to occur.
That's right.
Under the permit as it is proposed.
Correct.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you.
So I'd like to go ahead and get any input from the applicants, if we have representatives here.
Yeah, I have a question. Sure. On Rick Lavamarcino, board member at Elk Point. On that, there where we put all of the dredged material, we discover, don't we discover if there's any of that bad with, you know, stuff that we're supposed to not have, right?
Potentially. So New Zealand mud snails, especially, are very, very small, even to a degree of being microscopic. And we do want the surveying to also include pre-dredging as well, so that we know what we're getting into when we start pulling that substrate out below the lake. Again, that's gonna inform whether or not that dredging material needs to be completely sealed at all times versus, placing it in the dewatering area. Now there are, and I should mention, there are methods for dewatering that can be done within sealed containers. But I'm sure that it's more favorable for you, the applicant, to not have to pay that expense for such a container.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, what I was trying to understand, and this is where it would be helpful, is there a way that when you bring the material out, that it is, is there some scientific or however you guys do the measuring, to determine that, no, there isn't any of that?
Yeah, so there are multiple methods, and maybe one of our AIS specialists could speak to this better than myself.
I don't need to know.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to find out is that if it's discovered
Mhm.
that there isn't any of that species in the material, why couldn't we put it over to the beach rather than having to take it out?
In addition to AIS returning to the lake and those return flows, we're also worried about sediment going back into the lake and reducing water quality. That was one of the comments that we received from Nevada Department of Environmental Protection.
Okay, I was just trying to understand, what that process was. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Can I just say a question?
Yeah, please do.
Ralph Nielsen, I'm with the Marina Committee, been involved with this harbor for the last 30 years. We did the extension to our breakwater here a few years ago to prevent the sand from shutting us down.
Yes,
And
sir.
that seems to be working really well. At that time, we did dewatering in that area that you're showing there. Did we have any problems with the mussels, the clams at that point?
Well, we
Do
haven't.
you have that in your records,
So the only known, to my knowledge, the only known species of aquatic invasive species in there now are plant species, so it wouldn't include Asian clams or quagga mussels or New Zealand mud snails. Thank you. And I'm sorry. Could you repeat the question?
Well, my
Did we
question-
see that problem when we were doing dewatering at that point? Is that the basic?
No, I think that we did dewatering there and it seemed to work out fine. I didn't, TRPA didn't have any problems with it, and I don't see why that wouldn't work. In the past, when we had the harbor shut off, the beach, the sand came in and shut the harbor off from sand that was washed in from the beach. And we were able to put that and relocate it up into the beach. So
Right.
I
Beach
think
replenishment
at
was
this
done at that
point,
time.
if we're dredging inside the harbor, that wouldn't work. I don't think that'll be clean enough, but there might be some that could be put out there. But I will be able to, usually in the past, we looked at, when we were doing a project, we came in a site inspection and then we worked together with TRPA and our consultants to see what could be done. Is that
As far as
process
beach
still going to
replenishment
be the
goes?
same?
Well, I think given the concerns there is a different factor here than when beach replenishment was previously approved at this site.
I mean, I don't think much of it will be involve any of that. Most of it, I think, is gonna be dewatering.
Okay.
Inside.
Yeah, so we wouldn't be
Mixed with
approving
inside.
beach replenishment as a part of this project. The thing that has changed since that was last approved at the project site is the introduction of New Zealand mud snails, and they're notoriously hard to detect. So the risk or potential for spread of that species, if it were to be present in the marina or in the harbor, I think is a little too great to swallow.
Yeah,
by
I
doing
wouldn't
beach
wanna
replacement.
take any chances with that, of course not.
Right.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I've had a chance to meet Zach finally in person, and we've talked on the phone a few times. I'm Larry Fry, I'm a unit owner and also on the Marina Committee. And I just wanted to say that I've gained a good appreciation for the importance of the AIS plan over the last couple of years. I've worked with Molly Hurt over at TRCD on and the MTS divers on Eurasian milfoil mitigation in our harbor. And also I wanted to say that there's definitely a tie-in between the AIS plan implementation and the Clean Marine program. And we've tried to communicate this to our unit owners and our voters. And that's also in our fall newsletter, which I just gave Zach a copy of. Ongoing surveillance and participation by our unit owners and voters is important for the milfoil mitigation. And so we have taken steps, and I'll go over that with Tony Anderson when we have our certification for the Clean Marine program, by installing a second skimmer device so that, and signage, increased signage, so that there's voter education about the importance of the AIS plan implementation, if you will. So I just wanted to let you know that that's top of my mind, and we're trying to make it top of everyone's mind. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, sir.
All right, I'll go ahead and
Okay.
chat a little bit. Jennifer Kwasnick with Gordon Consulting, and so I've been working with the committee on the application materials. And first, we started talking with TRPA staff on this over 3 years ago, getting more specific. So I just want to thank all of the TRPA staff, present and not present, who have been involved in, helping us get to this point. And, things have changed over time, regulations have changed over time with all the different agencies. And so we just appreciate that. And then the willingness to coordinate with us. I know Zach and I have gone back and forth on some of the draft permitting issues. And so we just really appreciate that and understand that there are some new things now that have come up that, we're gonna have to coordinate on. And I know too, when we first started this, Tiffany, we had a consultation meeting with her, and she kind of indicated, you are the guinea pigs in some ways, and, with the new shoreline code. So it's been interesting. So I wanted to thank Zach for some of the clarifications. And I did want to note, we have applied to the Army Corps, to NDEP for the 401 certification, and both of them have requested additional details, which we've been working on, and expressed the same things that sound like they've brought up to you as well. I've also reached out to Douglas County so we can get ready for that, as well as NDEP, Temporary Working and Waterways, and all the other alphabet soup agencies that are involved. So really excited to see this move forward. I did have a couple of questions, just based on kind of what some of the adjustments I guess you made today. And I guess first I'll jump over to the timeline question, and then I have questions related to some of the conditions mentioned. But when we first started talking to Tiffany about this, and all the other agencies, we were looking at a 5-year term. It was before, we still don't have a 100% construction schedule just because of the way things go. But we were looking at 5 years to kind of allow for, phased improvements over the years. And so we, when we received this, we did ask Zach about the January 2027 expiration date, and he explained that as long as we've started the construction and are diligently pursuing it, if it gets pushed beyond that, that we would not need to reapply for another permit. And so I just wanted to make sure there was nothing, that was clear. And so then moving on to the other questions, initially, some of the draft conditions had a lot of things, required prior to acknowledgement. And just to kind of lay this out, we get the TRPA permit, and then that allows the marina to go ahead and obtain bids from contractors. And in the meantime, we're working on getting the Douglas County permit. And then once we get to that point, we can go ahead and, work with manufacturers to start developing materials. So there's kind of these things, domino effect of these things that have to happen before they can even, start construction. And at this point, we're hoping to start construction spring of 2025. So all the kind of things that have to happen before that. And so some of the things that came up to be required prior to acknowledgement, we're concerned about, whether or not that's feasible given this timeline. And so Zach made some adjustments to that. We discussed the, especially the AIS management plan versus, coordinating with staff on the surveys and methodology. And I just want to clarify that, the control plan, you said that we would now be required to do that prior to acknowledgement. And, so we, look forward to working with staff to figure out exactly then, what that's gonna entail. But recognizing that there's a certain level of specificity that we maybe can't quite get to prior to acknowledgement. And so we just don't want to see this delayed 6 months because now we're trying to figure out certain specifics. Whereas the survey and methodology, I raised the issue with, we obviously gonna have to hire out for that. And so it would, the experts would, help determine what those specifically look like. And that that's not something that would be feasible prior to acknowledgement. And so before we said we could condition that prior to the dredging, the pre-grade. And I just want to make sure that that was still the case because maybe I'm a little confused on that. So that's kind of one question. The other thing, the clean marine certification, that's another one that, we tried to get the guys up here. They're coming up from Arizona. There's got to be 2 of them. So we just had trouble. And to the state, we're still looking at trying to see if they can come even, next month, but we just don't know. And so having that tied to the first pre-grade inspection as opposed to permit acknowledgement, getting that final certification. So that again, we're not waiting on them for months and months, depending on what happens. So, so I guess I just wanted to kind of, make sure that I understood those things correctly and that things haven't been changed. So I guess I'll go ahead and leave it there for now and go ahead and let you.
Yeah, well, let me address some of those things because I was probably a little light on the detail as far as updates and corrections to that permit. And I appreciate you kind of laying out that timeline and the domino effect. That is why you're going to see some of these kind of shifting around in the permit is I want to, try to do everything by the book, do everything by the code of ordinances while also meeting accommodations for and requests for the applicant as best to my ability. So that is why you're going to see some of these changes and shifting and updates. Now, specifically for the Clean Marina certification, I don't think I mentioned that I'd be updating that to be required prior to the first pre-grade inspection. So not prior to acknowledgement of the permit. Regarding the AIS surveying and methodology, that would be required prior to dredging the second pre-grade inspection. And let's see, were there any other particular items you want to address the timeline of?
I guess just, clarification with regards to the control plan that would be required prior to acknowledgement.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, what that would entail and how quickly staff anticipates you could work with us on that to get that. At least whether it be general now, recognizing that we'll figure out some specifics prior to pre-grade or.
Yeah, in requiring that prior to acknowledgement, I think that part of the thinking there is that this is a plan, it's on paper. It is gonna require some coordination with TRPA, with our AIS specialist, with myself, with the Tahoe Resource Conservation District. But ultimately, it's not any on the ground work. It's not hiring of a third party, such as the survey methodology is. So being that it's just on paper and, there's no physical work that needs to be done as a part of that. It seemed, to me at least, it seemed like it would be more feasible to be done prior to acknowledgement.
Okay, I guess in that case, this is maybe just getting into the weeds, but has there been a format of what that might look like or an example? Because I know when we first talked to Tiffany about it, there really wasn't one yet at that time.
Sure.
Hey,
Yeah.
can I just jump in real fast? This is Tiffany Good, with the permitting and compliance department. I see that Dennis has his hand raised, and I'm not sure if Emily is still in the room, but perhaps either of you can speak to the template that we have available in Acela in the Citizens Access database and how that might benefit Elk Point.
Yeah, Dennis, do you want me to take this one?
Yeah, go once you go ahead.
Okay. Yes, we do have a formal template created for the AIS Marina Management Plan, also called the Control Plan today. And we have had a successful completion from Obexer's Marina on that, so we can use that as a template. They've given us permission to use theirs as an example. And just as an anecdote, I sat down with the owner and general manager, of Obexer's Marina, and they had their marina plan finished by the end of the day. So it's pretty quick. Yeah, it is mostly just documentation of kind of what species you have in your marina, what precautions you are taking, so bubble curtain skimming, things like that. What sort of education components you have incorporated. The biggest lift would be thinking about control methods for the species present, but we can discuss that. It'll be kind of a case-by-case basis for every marina. And then part of the marina management plan is an underwater survey, but again, we can discuss that. It sounds like that's already part of these conditions, and so we can be, we can discuss what that would look like for this year. And it's a process that we're starting, so we are, again, taking it case by case and kind of just working with you where we can. So, but I don't think it'll be challenging to complete prior to acknowledgement.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
And if I can add, this is Dennis Bagwell, the Aquatic Invasive Species Program Manager for TRPA. As to some of the specifics that we asked for in these AIS management plans, with future control options, or a plan to actually treat an invasive species within the property area or the project area. This is a interesting project and an opportunity for us to potentially try a new technique for control with dredging itself. So we want to work with the project proponent and leverage the work that they are proposing with potential treatment items. So I think as we're closer to a point of breaking ground, if you will, is when we will have some of the specifics around the actual treatment of the plan. And it could be that dredging in and of itself is the control method. So those kind of details will be forthcoming and would not be prudent to have prior to acknowledgement. We want to be able to work and investigate new ideas and leverage funds from the homeowners and from public funding that we have to implement a sound control project.
Thank you, Dennis. Yes, please go ahead.
So this is Larry Fry with Elk Point. So I guess what I'm understanding is that the some of the technical components in terms of control pieces are still being evaluated. And so I'm just wondering if that might be a condition of acknowledgement as opposed to preventing the acknowledgement, because we need some a package that we can send out to contractors to get the process going for bid returns. And we will operate on a fiscal year, our HRA operates on a fiscal year. And so we'll be coming up this spring in a couple of months with the budget process. So it would be helpful for us to have some hard numbers from contractors. So we've got some good numbers to go into the planning process with from a budgeting standpoint. So that would be, I'm looking at it from the HOA standpoint, of course. The AIS plan, I understand there's a new emphasis on this because of the discovery of the New Zealand mud snail. So we want to, of course, be cooperative with that moving forward. But I'm just wondering if the AIS plan can't be conditioned prior to pre-grade as opposed to prior to acknowledgement. I'm just going to ask that request again, so we don't hold things up. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I see no reason that it couldn't be done prior to pre-grade. I think that the pre-grade inspection is essential for, beginning this project and carrying it through. And if the control plan were to be finalized and approved prior to that, it ensures that we get that control plan in place prior to any groundbreaking and any work being done.
Dennis has his hand raised again.
Yes.
Yeah, I would support that request. To me, that makes a lot of sense to be able to make sure, like I said, plan a sound project.
So Dennis, what you're saying is that, it would seem like a reasonable course of action to have this, completed and approved prior to the pre-grade.
Correct. Rather than an acknowledgement.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so that will be a change, to the permit. I don't want to stop the flow of comments, but I do want to revisit all the changes to the permit.
Yes.
Okay, so do we have any other comments?
There are no comments, there are no hands raised to comment on one.
Okay, so Zach, would you please go through the changes to the permit?
Absolutely, they're numerous. So first off, in the project description of page 1 of the permit, I would like to remove the phrase breakwater extension to reflect that we reviewed this as a modification to the cheat pile wall. Second, I'd like to add a condition of prior to pre-grade 1, that the applicant coordinate with TRPA to curate and approve the AIS management plan or control plan. The third item would be for the same to be true condition that clean marina certification be required prior to pre-grade number 1. I'd like the fourth item to be moving condition 3A regarding AIS inspection of dredging equipment, moving that to condition 2, so that is not required prior to acknowledgement, that is required prior to pre-grade inspection number 2, which is required for dredging. Also, I would like to clean up that language a little bit in that condition to not require the AIS inspection and decontamination to be performed at a inspection site in the upland, so that we can examine better methods for potentially doing an in-water inspection and decontamination. Excuse me. The fifth item, I believe we're at, I'd like to move condition 2C and put it into the already existing condition 3B5. This would, 3B5 requires that the bubble curtain basically lays out a timeline for the repair of that bubble curtain, scoping the repairs, and then a timeline for actually doing the work. We'd like to see that alert system just go ahead and add it as a part of that repair work, as opposed to putting it off to, say pre-dredging or pre-construction commencement. We think it makes sense to, if we're gonna, if someone's gonna send divers down to do the repair work, or pull the system out of the water, whatever it may be, that it makes sense to go ahead and put that alert system in there, since we're gonna be conditioning that anyways. And then finally, the last correction will be to correct the page numbering of the permit.
Thank you. for
Thank
going
you.
Back through that.
Yes.
Well, and I wanted to include the changes that we just made
Yes,
as well.
thank you.
So that was a summary of all of the changes. I have a question about the findings
Okay.
for chapter 84. I think I have some additional findings to make in that chapter. Well, I think under 84.6.2B, I need to make some findings.
Okay.
And those would be, under B1, that the AIS control plan would be approved prior to the second, or prior to the pre-grade.
Correct.
The first pre-grade.
Correct.
Also that the, under B2, the project permit requires those 5 findings, A through E.
Mhm.
Now, because this, because the location of this, my understanding is that the NPDES permit required by Lahontan wouldn't be required because they don't have jurisdiction there.
That's correct.
So item B, my finding would be that none is required. Item A, the approved AIS control plan would be in place prior to the first pre-grade. Item C is that the lease with state lands would be in place prior to the pre-grade or acknowledgement.
Let me go back to my notes here. So currently, the way that's written, it's a broad permit condition that basically says that any agency with jurisdiction, applicable jurisdiction, those approvals, if an approval were required, that it would be obtained. The Nevada State Lands permit would be required, is my understanding. So it was part of that. It was being lumped in with that condition. Now, if we needed to alter that to require that by a certain timeline, in order to make that finding, that's something that I could correct that permit condition with. But I will note, again, I think I brought this up earlier, typically when state lands approves a project, they're looking for TRPA approval first. So with that timeline, it doesn't make sense for us to require that prior to acknowledgement.
Correct. And so in your staff report, you did mention that state lands waits for the TRPA permit to be in place, and then they do their work.
Right.
I don't know what the timeline is for state lands. I don't know how quickly they move. So I think that the general condition that you have in place, we can make that, I can make that finding. That it will be, required as a condition of the permit. And as we don't know what the timing will be with state lands, but it will be a condition of the permit. I'm not gonna put anything in there regarding acknowledgement, because I do think that that's impossible. Okay, so I'm gonna, and in case there was confusion, I'm going through a code section out of the TRPA code that requires some findings with respect to this permit that just, there were a lot of findings in the staff summary. Those were not in there. So I'm gonna go ahead and just read my findings into the record with respect to that code section 84.6.2B.
Marcia,
Yes,
may I just interrupt quickly?
yes.
Just to emphasize it, I think it's great that you're gonna articulate the basis for these conclusions. I just want to make certain to clarify that as a legal matter, the findings themselves are not required because they only apply to marinas. We are utilizing this section because even though this is not a qualified marina under those provisions, it provides the best analytical framework for this particular project. So I just want to make that clear, but please go ahead and articulate those connections that you'd like to make.
Thank you, John. And I did recognize that this is not a marina that's on the list of marinas, and this framework does work best for analyzing this. And because I can make those findings, we're using this structure, it makes sense to make those findings and support the decision, in this framework that we're using. So I can, if we needed to make those findings, I can make all of those, and I'll just finish them. The state lands, that's just a permit that's gonna have to come about. It's part of compliance with all of those permit requirements. The Colleen Marina certification is part of the conditions, and they already have a BMP, they're in good standing with TRPA on their BMPs. So they meet all of those conditions as well. Okay, so is there any other final comments from anyone?
I just wanted to clarify for the record that that I had concerns which Zach has cleared up on the beginning of the project or finishing it up. So as long as we can commence the project and have a game plan for moving forward by the end of the 3-year timeline, then we're good then, correct?
Yeah, so essentially, what that expiration date that you're gonna see on the permit, if we have a tentative construction schedule that's gonna be approved as part of this permit. So long as construction commences prior to that 2027 date,
Okay.
then, the permit wouldn't expire. We have that construction schedule,
And that would come from our contractor that we choose, correct? Or is
right,
that-
and we can update that construction schedule as needed, but we need to see essentially that the project is being diligently pursued prior to that expiration date.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that, you know, when you look at a finished product, you back up into the steps it takes to get to that finished product, just like if you're looking at a show or a play on a stage. So, and for our purposes, of course, it comes back to an initial acknowledgement so that we can move forward with getting bids from contractors and getting a financing plan in place for our unit owners and that type of thing. So I appreciate the big picture view. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you actually.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I guess maybe a quick timing question for Zach.
Yeah.
In terms of the revised permit based on this discussion.
Yeah.
What would be the timing for seeing that?
Given, that this is a somewhat tight timeline for you in the spring, I can make this my first priority. I know that we have a lot of changes that I've listed out here, but ultimately this is a day's work for me. So I think that I could probably get that out to you next week if that's amenable.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you. Jessica, are there any hands raised online?
There are no hands raised.
Okay. All right. Thank you to everyone who participated today. This was great job. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and take action on this item. I will approve the findings contained in the staff summary, the finding of no significant environmental effect. I'll approve the project based on the staff summary, record evidence, and subject to the conditions contained in the draft permit as it was amended during the meeting today. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have one item left. So we will go ahead and take our last item. This is the North Tahoe Fire Protection District Verizon Telecommunications Facility, 288 North Shore Boulevard, Tahoe City, Placer County, California. Assessor's parcel numbers 117-180-001 and 117-180-003. And it's TRPA file number ERSP 2022-1997. All right.
Yeah. Shall I begin?
Yes, please.
Yes, okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, can I just interrupt very quickly, John Marshall again? So we're picking up some kind of background conversation,
I think it's in the hallway.
It's in the hallway.
some way to
like-
shut doors or something?
They're all shut. They're just that loud.
Just very loud.
Maybe ask them to move along or something, I'm sorry.
They are, that's because I'm
Jessica's working on
really busy.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, I'll go ahead and begin. My name is Bridget Cornell and I'm an associate planner with the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency. And as Hearings Officer Marshall Birch just mentioned, this is a proposed telecommunications facility located at 288 North Shore Boulevard. It is in Kings Beach, not Tahoe City.
Oh.
I did have a typo on one of my early versions of this app summary. I don't know if you got the one that is on the website though does identify it as Kings Beach. It encompasses two parcels, two adjacent parcels, both of which were referenced earlier. I'm going to give you a little background. Okay, so first of all, these two parcels are located within the Wood Vista subdistrict of the Placer County Tahoe Basin Area Plan. Transmission and receiving facilities are processed within the Placer County Tahoe Basin Area Plan as a minor use permit or MUP, and minor use permits kind of the corresponding TRP processes that we process them as a special use. So it is the fact that this is being processed as a special use is what is requiring a hearings officer. So Verizon Wireless is proposing to install 4 antennas on the roof of the North Tahoe Fire Protection District
An existing station, again, on 288 North Shore Boulevard. North Shore Boulevard is Highway 267, so it's just across the street from like the Brockway Golf Course there on 267. So 3 antennas will be installed on the roof of the building and 1 on the adjacent, along the side of the building. The rooftop antennas will be screened with a faux chimney, they call it, and it's painted to match the existing building. And then the antenna that's mounted on the side of the building will be painted to match the building. And then there is an equipment cabinet that is to be installed on an existing, it's on the rear of the building underneath the stairwell. So none of these improvements are requiring or are result in any changes to land coverage. In addition to the antennas and the equipment cabinet, Verizon is proposing to trench a utility trench to connect the antennas and the equipment directly to the power source at the street. So so that they don't have to utilize tap off of the power of the fire department. Because this is a cellular facility, we sent out a notice of application to affected property owners within a 1/4-mile radius of the project area. We sent the notice of application back in November. It's hard to tell whether the comments I received or, well, yeah, I did receive 1 or 2 comments in response, or just phone calls in response to the notice of application. Once we decided to move forward, public notices were again mailed to all the same affected property owners on January 4th of this year. I have not received any additional comments since the January 4th notices went out. One thing I do want to highlight, and it was referenced very briefly in the staff summary, is that this project was already approved back in 2019 as TRPA file number ERSP 2019-0213. The, speaking of permit expirations that we talked about earlier, the permit expired prior to acknowledging the permit. The applicant then moved forward and submitted a new application to TRPA, essentially for a permit reissuance. But it was during the review of this current application, we discovered that a portion of the project has already been constructed. So the antennas are installed, the faux chimney is installed, they are not yet connected to a dedicated power source, and the full BMPs or best management practices for the site have not yet been installed. So because they pursued construction without an acknowledgement or pre-grade inspection, we did assess a penalty that is incorporated into the job permit of a double filing fee. So I just wanted to highlight that has happened here, but even though it was approved by hearings officer in 2019, it was decided internally that we would still go through all the same processes this time around. We noticed, we did the notice of application and it's still coming back to hearings officer for approval. So just to put it all out there. So they do still need to connect to the utilities and install the full best management practices. So that's just the very brief description of this project. Andrew Lisa is here from Epic Wireless. He can just, address the project a little bit and answer any questions that you have. And then we would ask that you would approve the findings and approve the project. So this is Andrew Lisa from Epic Wireless.
Thanks, Bridget. Yeah, hi, Andrew Lisa, Epic Wireless on behalf of Verizon Wireless. I do just have one comment, slight correction. There's 6 total antennas, so
okay.
Just for the record, but 2 are on the exterior of the building, 4 are within the enclosed faux cupola. Other than that, we're happy to accept all the findings and would ask for the approval. And it's definitely a project that's benefiting the community, improves service specifically for North Lake Boulevard, but also Kings Beach, which is in dire need of improved service for emergency first responders and just normal dedicated communication that we come to rely on in society these days. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those.
I have one question. So there are 6 total antennas. And I noticed in here that the power density is 16.5% of the FCC limit. Is it still that?
Correct.
Was the measurement was the same, just the number was incorrect?
Yes, no, that's
Okay.
a great distinction. That's
Yeah.
correct.
Okay.
So that is a very good question. Thank you for asking that, because I was gonna ask that. So the EMERF report that we received does address all 6 antennas.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I have a question about the work that was completed. Was it consistent with the permit as it was issued?
As far as I can tell, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Because it, like, pictures that you see here, I mean, I presume this is an actual, this was the simulation from before, but yes, I have actually seen it. Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
I'd say it looks better than the photo
Yeah,
simulation.
yeah, it has some more texture to it, and so it does look a little different, not just like it is.
Okay, and you mentioned that you had a couple of phone calls. What were those comments about?
So one person left me several messages, or I think 2 or 3, during our office closure in December, and he was concerned about the exposure. And I called him back when we reopened on January 3rd, and I never heard back from him again. So
Okay.
another person called, apparently this notice was even posted on the local Facebook page, because this person said she was just outside of the noticing radius. And she was asking whether it was going to be 5G. And I followed up with Andrew and confirmed that it is going to be 4G, not 5G. So I just confirmed that with her, and those were the 2 questions that I had.
All right. Thank you.
Okay.
And thank you.
Thank you.
So we don't have any public comments here. Let's
Shocking.
go online and see if we have any public comments on our last item, item 5F.
Okay, if any member of the public wishes to comment on this item, you can do so now by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. There are no hands raised to comment on this item.
All right, thank you. I will close the public hearing and take action. I will approve.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Hi, John.
Forgive me for busting in and doing this at a late moment. But Verizon, the applicant here, has outstanding debts to the agency in tens of thousands of dollars. I'd like to discuss with you whether or not we should condition the acknowledgement of this permit on Verizon coming current with its obligations to the agency for indemnification of litigation expenses.
So what you're asking is if we could condition the permit acknowledgement upon coming current. Are the debts on one specific project, or are they multiple projects?
There are multiple projects. There are, well, it's the Eisenstecken litigation over the and the Miller case, and I think those are both over the same ski run cell tower in South Shore. But generally, if we have a violation of a permit, you know, we often condition resolution of the violation on any future permits.
So that is a practice that TRPA has followed in the past.
Yes.
And is it specific to a property, or can it be specific to a particular entity or person?
This would be probably breaking a bit new ground, that it's generally specific to the property. It might have the same owner. But these debts have been outstanding for months and months. And we've been attempting to work with Verizon to satisfy, for them to make payment on these obligations.
So I have a question, in a case like this, and this is a question for the applicant's representative, sorry. So in this particular case and in other situations, who owns that equipment? Is it the property owner or is it Verizon?
The antennas that are installed?
Yeah,
Verizon owns the equipment.
okay. So in each case, so John, what you're explaining to me is that historically, you know, the violation sort of attaches itself to the property, if you will. And in this case, what we have is a situation where the individual property owners may or may not be Verizon, but the equipment itself is owned by Verizon.
The property owners are not Verizon.
They usually have what they call a leasable area. So they have an area that they lease. So Verizon would lease it from, in this case, North Tahoe Fire Protection District.
All right, so TRPA is permitting the installation of these facilities generally through lease arrangements.
Correct.
Okay. John, how does that fit into your analysis here with respect to historic practices by TRPA in requiring the resolution of a violation prior to the issuance of a new permit?
It is, you know, quite honestly, this is something that's a bit unprecedented for us. We've, you know, both in the fact that we've never had such a dilatory applicant, and the fact that, you know, our ability to make our desire known and effective in terms of actual payment. So, you know, I think it's a bit out of the norm for us. But if the hearing officer thinks it's appropriate, that we condition this on prior to acknowledgement that all bills become current.
Could I get some more clarification? This is the first time I've heard of this concern. So could you elaborate a little bit more on what fees are outstanding and if they have any nexus to this project in particular? Or
yeah, Verizon is well aware of what the obligations and what their indemnification obligations. They've been billed multiple times. I think the intent is there to make payment. It just hasn't happened. And so I think, quite honestly, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your first name, Nick? No.
Andrew.
Andrew, sorry, Andrew. So Andrew, this is our way of hopefully providing Verizon with a little more incentive to make current on their obligations, that to indemnify expenses that the agency has been billed for our attorneys to represent us in the suits over other applications and permits, other permits. So to answer to your direct question, it is not directly related to this particular project. It's related to this applicant. And so that's why it's a bit out of the ordinary for us.
So would that condition then apply to all future permit requests through TRPA until the fees are paid?
That would be my intent, yes.
Yeah, I would say for future, you know, hearing this now, I would suggest that for future applications, we not even let it get this far before, you know, that we would try to reconcile with the applicant prior to taking it to a hearing and or issuing a permit. So.
Has TRPA taken that action in the past for previous applicants that had outstanding fees?
Yes, it happens when the difference here is this isn't the same property. So if someone has an outstanding violation on their property and they come in with another application for that property, then we will either not process or make a requirement to resolve those violations prior to construction.
Right, that happens pretty regularly.
I see. So in this case, it would be different, just so I understand correctly, in that this would also affect this particular property owner, even though that property
It wouldn't affect this property owner. It would affect Verizon, who is the lessee / installer owner of the equipment.
Well, it in turn would affect the property owners. They're the beneficiary of the project advancing.
Well, the applicant. I would say, like, just to, I guess, try to generalize it differently, that usually, like John was describing, the common denominator when we're dealing with something like this is the parcel itself.
Sure.
This time, the common denominator is the applicant, is Verizon. So, instead of looking at it on the physical part on the ground, it's multiple, a single applicant with multiple projects. Instead of multiple projects on a single parcel. So it's Verizon in general.
Yeah. No, I haven't come across that before.
Yeah. Well, not all, we get appeals, I would say, periodically on cellular related projects. Not all of them go further than that. So I think it doesn't happen very regularly that we are in this situation.
Sure.
I'm Marcia, I'm willing, if you think it's best to not impose it on this project, but maybe make sure that Andrew communicates to his Verizon representatives that future projects may be subject to this condition.
Yes, I was just going to suggest that as a solution, because I am willing to place this condition on future Verizon permits. I think this is, they are the owners of this equipment, and they are the common denominator. And they are consistently seeking permits and having them approved, and are conducting business in the basin at the expense of the agency at this point. So I will definitely consider placing such a condition on a future permit. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and take action today and approve this permit. John, unless you have anything else.
No, I don't. Thank you for the consideration.
Good to put on the record, yeah.
All right, I will approve this permit, the project as proposed and the related findings based on the staff summary and the draft permit. And I will make a finding of no significant effect. All right.
Thank you.
I'll be sure to pass that along.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if I have any other Verizon projects coming up. Yeah. That is good to know though. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Safe travels back.
Thank you, John. Did he already go?
John, are you there?
He's still here.
I'm here.
Oh, yeah.
I'm here.
Okay,
Are we still being recorded?
Yes.
What?
Yes, because we haven't adjourned yet.
thank you.
Oh, sorry.
And so I will adjourn the meeting at 3:47 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Do you want to have a discussion? Or